Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Association for Fixed Annuities' first webcast of 2023. I'm Janet Turpinning, Senior Director of Operations at NAFA. We are pleased to have as our guest today Heather Kane, Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and Jeff Barnes, Regional Vice President at EquiTrust. They'll be sharing with us the changes in inherited and stretch IRAs. Good afternoon to you both. We sure appreciate the partnership and support of EquiTrust as a very active member company and all the contributions we've received from you both. And we're really looking forward to today's conversation. Many of you already know Heather and Jeff, but for those of you that don't, please let me take a moment to introduce them to you. Heather Kane has been with EquiTrust since 2004. Her broad insurance background provides a holistic perspective and understanding of the insurance and financial services industry. She's responsible for driving initiatives to help EquiTrust meet sales targets and also oversees the distribution structure and network of independent marketing organizations to recruit and retain skilled sales professionals. She's responsible for planning and execution of marketing, communications, and advertising initiatives. She started her insurance career in 1998 in policy administration, transitioning to sales and marketing in 2000. Heather graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree from Iowa State University. For more than a decade, she has served in varying capacities with the National Association for Fixed Annuities, NAFA, and she was most recently our 2022 Chair of the Board of Directors. She served on the Government and Legal Affairs Committee and Education Committee and the NAFA Board of Directors, where she was elected to the Executive Board in 2018. Welcome, Heather. Jeff joined the EquiTrust team in 2012. He's responsible for building and supporting relationships with independent marketing organizations to help EquiTrust exceed sales goals and boost recruiting success. He has provided sales and wholesaling support to both marketers and agents. With more than 25 years of insurance industry experience, he has a broad knowledge of products and the sales process. His prior work experience includes life sales, sales desk and sales development management, wholesaling, and IMO marketing. Jeff graduated from Drake University with a finance degree and is life insurance licensed. He has served with the National Association for Fixed Annuities for more than 8 years, including 4 years on the Education Committee, spending time as Vice Chair and Chair, and 3 years on the Membership Committee. He was elected to the 2023 NAFA Board of Directors. Before we get started, I'd like to note for our audience that we invite you to ask questions using the chat panel on the right side of your screen. Questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation as time allows. Welcome, Heather and Jeff, and I'll turn things over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Janet. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here on the call with you. I know Heather feels the same way. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off, and we can go ahead and get started. So thank you very much. So inherited and stretch IRAs, what has changed? What we're going to cover today, we're going to give a little bit of a background and then also share with you the new rules and really kind of dive into what's changed due to the Secure Act. We do want to kind of finish that up with a few key takeaways. And then we also wanted to share with you a solution that we've worked with over here at EquiTrust, which is a partial tax conversion program. So first, let's just kind of start out with, what are inherited and stretch IRAs? And really, if you think about it, it's an estate planning strategy that's designed to help beneficiaries take advantage of the tax deferred status of the IRA. And we're going to talk a little bit about the distribution and taxation requirements, which obviously depend on several factors, most importantly, the owner's death. And then also talk a little bit about the types of beneficiaries that are tied to these cases. And I will also just wanted to mention that over here at EquiTrust, we've kind of adopted the two terms inherited and stretch to kind of differentiate between the two types of setups that somebody can have. There isn't, you're not going to find that in the IRS tax code, that differentiation, but we've kind of used that internally as a way to differentiate between the two. So Heather, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. Would you mind talking a little bit about the way things were before the Secure Act came out?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeff. I don't mind talking about it at all. I actually, you know me better than a lot, but I love this topic. I love the idea of tax and the things that change and everything. And I mean, even kind of going back, EquiTrust, and we speak from experience, we speak from what we do. EquiTrust started accepting stretch IRA business back in 2008, and so when Secure Act came out and everything, certainly created some opportunities to look at things and everything, but kind of where we came from. So kind of prior to Secure Act, I think it's important to talk about what it was. I'm sure most people on the call understand and know, but prior to the Secure Act taking place and going into place January 1st of 2020, if the owner of an IRA died, prior to that, a stretch IRA was an option. And again, Jeff mentioned there really isn't this differentiation between stretch or inherited. But the idea with stretch that we kind of think of is you're stretching this money out over their lifetime. That beneficiary gets to stretch it. So prior to Secure Act, stretch IRA was an option that was available for any IRA beneficiary. Now, in most cases, this would have been a non-spouse beneficiary, a cousin, an uncle, a child, whomever. It would have been a non-spouse beneficiary. Now, because a spouse would have normally just done a spousal IRA. That's not to say that they couldn't have done a stretch. They certainly could have, and there's reasons. But normally, in most cases, that non-spouse beneficiary is who would be doing stretch IRAs. And so with this, the beneficiary was then required to take distributions from that stretch IRA at a rate based on their single life expectancy -1 each year, and therefore allowing that IRA money to really play out and last the lifetime of that beneficiary. And so, being in any kind of vehicle that it was in, it allowed, again, that IRA to stand the test of time and be there for a long period of time. But as we all know, Secure Act came out, and of course it passed late in, right before January 1, 2020. So right at the end of 2019, came right in and passed Secure Act. And so we all experienced these changes on that January 1st. And so what those changes did for stretch IRA or beneficiaries of IRA business is that it changed and it made us have to determine what kind of beneficiary we're dealing with. And there's a difference as far as what they can do. So after the Secure Act, if the IRA owner passed away on or after January 1st, 2020, eligible beneficiaries can still stretch that IRA. So if they're eligible, they get to continue the same provisions that were in place prior to 2020. No changes to Secure Act impacted them at all. So if they're an eligible beneficiary, they're in great shape. Ineligible beneficiaries, however, are required to pay tax on all of the funds in that IRA within 10 years from the date of death of that original contract owner. Now, beginning in 2023, what we're hearing and what we're seeing is and I hate to say this, but beginning in 2023, the IRS, we believe, is going to be adhering to this. But if that deceased IRA owner had begun RMDs prior to the death, that ineligible beneficiary is going to be required to continue taking those RMDs based on the longer of the original RMD calculation of the IRA owner or the single life calculation of the beneficiary. Now, I say beginning in 2023 because truly what we're hearing is this was the intention of the IRS all along in 2020. There was some pauses. They're not basically implementing it or requiring it. And we're hearing that in 2023, that's when the IRS is really going to make sure that that's happening. But it is important to know that those ineligible beneficiaries, that money has to go from being this IRA asset to being all taxed within 10 years of that date of death. So if that IRA beneficiary died before January 1, 2020, it's important to know that the original beneficiary can maintain that stretch status that they already established. So, that date of death really comes into play as far as what's happening, whether they're an eligible beneficiary, an ineligible beneficiary, and really what's taking place with that. So, you know, I think it's important at this point, though, to maybe explain what's an eligible beneficiary and what's an ineligible beneficiary. So with that, those qualifications, these two categories of beneficiaries were determined or came out of it. So eligible beneficiaries, which are the ones that get to continue along the same path that has always been out there, those eligible beneficiaries are a spouse of the deceased IRA owner, and that spouse can either stretch it, as I mentioned, that can be done, or they can just do a spousal IRA. That's fine too. But if a spouse chooses to stretch, they certainly have that right, and they are identified as an eligible beneficiary. The other types of eligible beneficiaries are an individual who's disabled, an individual who's chronically ill, or an individual that is not more than 10 years younger than that deceased IRA owner. Now, I'm going to pause before we talk about ineligible beneficiaries. There is one other type of eligible beneficiary that I'm just going to mention. It's not going to be bulleted here on the screen, and that is minors. Technically, minors are considered eligible beneficiaries as long as they're a minor. The problem is, or I hate to say the problem, but the situation with them is once they become age of majority, they're no longer considered a minor, they're no longer considered eligible, and they convert to an ineligible beneficiary. So, you know, as being what the fact that Jeff and I are here with EquiTrust, we're going to speak to what we do, and so we don't take those minor beneficiaries and identify them as eligible. That's not business we'll take. But ineligible beneficiaries are basically everybody else. So an ineligible beneficiary is anyone that doesn't meet one of these four categories above. Is really where we come into play. And you know, at the beginning, Jeff talked about the fact that we've kind of coined this stretch or inherited. And the idea is we identify the eligible beneficiaries as stretch IRAs because they get to continue to stretch that IRA asset out over their lifetime, whereas those ineligible beneficiaries get to inherit that IRA, but they have to pay tax on that money in 10 years. So you know, that's kind of where they fall. So I think that the thing that really put a wrench in things with the Secure Act changes would be that double stretch concept. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about double stretch because we talked, you know, with beneficiaries determining who you are, they still get to do and spread those monies out. But something that really kind of did change was double stretch, and it occurs when an IRA has been stretched and then the beneficiary dies and the funds are stretched again one or more times. Well, prior to Secure Act, this could just keep happening. You know, if prior to Secure Act, if the original IRA owner and that first beneficiary died before January 1, 2020, the account title includes the decedent's name and the deceased beneficiary, and all those distributions are reported as death claim distributions, and they just get to continue this in basically over that first beneficiary's life expectancy. So RMDs are required based on that life expectancy of the first beneficiary and continue until the IRA is depleted. And that could just keep happening. First beneficiary could pass and their beneficiary could continue this in, with the life expectancy of the first, and it could just continue on. Well, after Secure Act, that went away. And so after Secure Act, what happens is an original IRA owner who dies prior to that January 1, 2020, if that first beneficiary then dies after January 1, 2020, those RMDs are required based on the life expectancy of the first beneficiary and continue until their death. That's kind of the pre-Secure Act situation there. But once that first beneficiary dies, and in this example, after January 1, 2020, after Secure Act took place, those funds can't be stretched further. They don't get to continue on the life expectancy of that first beneficiary. This money, this IRA now becomes an inherited IRA in the whole sense of it. They're now an ineligible beneficiary, and therefore monies have to be taxed within 10 years of that death. So that double stretch concept, the idea of being able to continue to stretch those monies out for a really long time, went away, as deaths occur with the Secure Act passing, and so that double stretch kind of got removed. But again, they convert to the ineligible beneficiary status, and that works for them. So I think some of the takeaways that I've mentioned in here that I just want to maybe comment on would be the fact that this date of January 1, 2020 is so important to determine whether that IRA falls under that pre-Secure Act rule or that post-Secure Act rule, and that it's really important to know that for deaths on or after January 1, 2020. The eligible beneficiaries get to continue and stretch that money over their lifetime, whereas ineligible beneficiaries get to inherit that money, but they have to pay tax on that money within 10 years. What I would just really want to point out and just say is that, you know, here at EquiTrust, Jeff and I, we take sales for either type of beneficiary. It's something that we really have put our teeth into. We really want to, you know, make sure that all these clients, all of the advisors have a place to work with the clients that this is happening to, and allow that to be an opportunity for them. So, you know, Jeff, that's kind of some of the answers there. I'd love to maybe turn it over to you, and you can talk a little bit more about what EquiTrust is doing in addition to allowing to take this business.
Yeah, no, thank you, Heather. And that was obviously perfect. So really, being able to stretch that money out for the ineligible beneficiaries, that's really kind of rocked their world, and they've lost that ability to spread that taxation out over you know, a longer period of time. So as Heather had mentioned, we worked very hard on a project over here at EquiTrust, and we wanted to just kind of share with you, you know, the results of that. So what we've put together, we call it a partial tax conversion program, and it's really a way to help those clients that lost their ability to stretch, to at least try to stretch it a little bit. So it is a flexible, systematic program. It applies to really any kind of, you know, IRA, traditional, SEP, simple, Roth, and then also it is set up for inherited IRAs as well. And basically what we're trying to do is, because again, the Secure Act changed things for the ineligible beneficiary. They've lost their ability to stretch those taxes out. And so what we're trying to do is trying to help them stretch as much as they possibly can. And as Heather had mentioned, the ineligible beneficiary in most cases is going to have 10 years to get those taxes taken care of. So we've set up a program, and you can kind of think of it like a mirror contract. So we've set up a program where when a client purchases one of our annuities, they have, with the, you know, just one form that they fill out, they have the ability to set up this partial tax conversion. And that's going to allow them to basically move that money from the qualified contract over to a non-qualified contract. So it's a mirror, it's a clone, it's set up identically like the one that's been issued. Same issue date, same product, same features, everything's identical. And they have the ability to tell us how they want to move that over, which dictates how they are going to be taxed. So they can set it up where if they want to do just a one-time partial conversion, they can do that. They can set it up systematically and move it over each year by a specific dollar amount, or they can set it up systematically so it converts each year, so that at the end of the 10 years, they've got the money moved over completely. And then, of course, as they move that money over, we're going to 1099 them, because that's what the IRS wants to have happen. But we're giving them the ability to spread that taxation out over the full 10 years. And I really think most people would take advantage of this one on the far right. And that is where we would just systematically move the money over each year, so that at the end of the 10 years, it's all been moved over, and they've been taxed along the way. And we do have the ability, if they want us to withhold taxes, we can certainly do that. And at the end of the 10 years, then the original IRA account is empty, and the mirror contract is full, and it, of course, is non-qualified status. So again, as I had mentioned, this mirror contract concept is, again, it's like a clone. So everything is identical. And the nice thing about it, like let's say somebody they move money over each year over the 10 years. They're sitting with one contract. We've not opened up 10 new contracts. We've set it up with this mirror concept to move that over so that it's all in just one contract at the end of the day. So that's been our approach for tackling this issue that folks have where they lost the ability to stretch, but they would like to at least kind of minimize getting taxed, heavily in 1 year. So that, Janet, that kind of concludes the slides that we wanted to go over. Do we have any questions or?
You did such a great job so far. We haven't had any questions come across, but if you should leave this presentation and have some questions, please feel free to email me and I will make sure to get it over to Heather and Jeff and get you the answers you're seeking. But thank you both for sharing these really important changes with us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I want to thank our audience for joining us today. If you're not a NAFA member and would like to take advantage of future reviews of this webcast, which is very valuable, along with other valuable content to enhance your business, please go to NAFA.com and click on membership and join NAFA. Your membership allows us to continue our mission. For those of you who are on this call and are already supporting us through membership, we thank you. In closing, we want to thank the NAFA Education Committee, who's developed the webinar curriculum for this year, and Heather and Jeff for today's content. Thank you all for your time and attendance, and this concludes our webcast. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.